Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
My name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question. Jeff.
Yeah?
How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. So both you and I have something exciting going on.
Yes. Well, as of today, I'm fully vaccinated and everything.
Yep. I will be fully. I'm 1 day behind you.
Sure.
Tomorrow I will be 2 weeks from my second shot. So
awesome. It's neat at my work because I work in a fairly large place with a lot of employees. Whenever we clock in, there's like a little thing we have to fill out. We either have to fill out a sheet or we have to bring it up on our phone and like fill out a questionnaire. Mm-hmm. And it used to just be you'd answer, do you have any symptoms? Have you been around anybody with any symptoms and so on? And then you would just get like a big green check mark on your phone assuming you answered, no to everything.
Right. Yeah.
And I noticed that a few weeks ago, they started doing a different thing where before that, it would have the questions, are you fully vaccinated? If you say no, are you partially vaccinated? And I finally got to the point where I can say yes to the first question. And now, instead of I don't get all of the regular questions. Instead, I just get one question, and that's, do you have any symptoms? And then instead of a big green check mark, I get it's sort of like a check mark that's made out of like a bandage or something.
Okay.
It's weird. But anyway, so I get a different thing now.
Sure.
And it's a different process now. So it's definitely, it's changed.
Yeah, there's a somewhat tangible difference.
Right.
Basically, this whole time, I've been the only person at my work that has worn a mask the entire time.
Yeah.
People are wearing masks at work. They're not really good at doing it all the time, and they're definitely not like most of them are putting on a mask some of the time.
Sure.
A few of them barely ever put on a mask, and
you probably see a lot of noses.
Yeah, and then and then one or two of them wear the masks fairly regularly, but still I'll still see them running through the hallways without one, which is whatever. Sure. And it's been a real stressful year and a half.
Yeah.
At my work, just because we have had several several people getting infected, and my work isn't that big. It's not like a ton of people where okay, the chances are you're going to have one or two people every now and again who are going to have it.
Sure.
This was we had at most a dozen people. We've had 3 or 4 different cases go through. Mm-hmm. And so it's just been real aggravating dealing with them. But now that I am fully vaccinated and I feel confident and then I feel confident about the science of the vaccine and that it's working really well. I'm finally going to feel better. I'm probably still going to be wearing the mask at work. One, because it's our work's policy, which again is
sure.
really frustrating to have it be the work. Not only is it recommended by the CDC and just the right thing to do, and it's our work's policy. People just were still not wearing them all the time at work, and it was just all right, well, I guess I'll just be the only one following the rules. That's fine. So I'll probably still be wearing the mask.
Okay.
For the most part at work, but now I'm not. But I'm gonna actually go outside of my office. I'm gonna be able to walk around my work and not feel like I have to be secluded because I don't know. I don't know where everybody else has been.
Yeah.
So I'll be more active, and I think that's going to put me in a better mood generally.
Oh, cool. Yeah. At the very least, if it'll give you peace of mind.
Yeah, exactly. I might actually go shopping this weekend. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I've been going shopping this whole time. I don't know.
Well, right. But I just, before this even was a blip on the radar, I've always been very I've been on the hypochondriac kind of.
Sure.
I get pretty paranoid. I wouldn't call myself a germaphobe, but I'm very I get nervous when it comes to health things.
Sure.
But yeah, even before I've been nervous about that. So when it came to this virus, I was all right, well, I'm just never gonna go outside. It's all right. I didn't like it out there anyway.
Sure.
So anyway.
All right. You want to go ahead and jump into this episode, Jeff?
Yeah.
Cool. So, Jeff, I want you to imagine that you're going along through a dungeon. And not just that, this time you're actually going through a dungeon with a companion of yours.
Oh, okay.
Let's call this companion Gabe. So you and Gabe, you're going along through this dungeon. You hear that there's some, lost treasure somewhere in this dungeon or whatever. And you're going along through a room and you notice like a split second after it would have been relevant, you notice that there's like the floor is cracked in one part of the room.
Oh no.
And you realize this just as you see Gabe steps over and you cry out, no! And then the floor actually breaks under him and Gabe falls into the darkness below.
Oh no, Gabe!
However, a moment later, you hear like a boing sound. And then next thing you know, Gabe flies up out of the pit, looks around, midair, looks around confused, and then falls again.
Oh no.
And then you hear boing, and next thing you know, he's right there again.
Oh, okay.
And then you hear him and he goes, hey, Jeff, I can see something down here.
What is it, Gabe?
I think it's the dragons. Hang on. Horde, he says. All right. That was stupid. Today's magic item was submitted by Black Magus 2651 on Discord. And the item is the Bounce Back Bands by Brasiliensis.
Oh.
While worn, these rubber bands around the wrists give some lift to your enemies. On a successful hit, the target makes a strength save. So I guess I'm picturing these sort of like gauntlets. They take up the gauntlet slot.
Yeah.
If such a thing still exists in 5th edition.
Right, yeah. I think there's like a wrist slot, yeah.
On a successful hit, the target makes a strength save DC equal to your attack roll, and the limit is once per round. If they meet the DC, the attack resolves normally, so you swing your sword or you punch or whatever the heck you're doing. If they make a strength save equal to your attack roll, it's just a normal attack, nothing special happens. If they fail, the target is bounced back 10 feet and falls prone. If they fail by 5, they are bounced back 15 feet with an additional 5 feet for each 5 points, I guess, that they fail the save by.
Nice.
So that you can use them in combat to knock someone back while you're attacking. Also, when you take fall damage, you can use the bands to bounce yourself. You make a strength check, and for every 5 points, so like if you get a 5, 10, 15, 20, etc., you reduce the fall damage by 10 feet. So if you roll a 5, reduce it by 10 feet, roll a 10, reduce it by 20 feet, 30 feet on a 15, and so on. So it's got an attack ability, and it's got a utility ability.
This is a super cool item. Like this is absolutely an item I would love to have on like most of my characters.
Sure.
I like one of my favorite characters was like our epic level one-shot adventure or whatever that we did. Yeah. Lich Queen's Beloved.
Right.
I play and like because we were only 3 people, or it was like only like 3 or 4 of us, but it was like an epic level thing. Like Jay was like, all right, each one of you is getting basically a +1 level modifier ability or something. Or there was like some races had like the +1 level adjustments. That's what it is. Level adjustments. So like I was a Warforged with powerful build.
Okay.
Which was just ridiculous. I loved it. I played a Warforged with powerful build, and I did like a Warforged Juggernaut fighter thing or whatever, and like I took so many feats, but like it was all built towards I had a hammer, and I was gonna hit the heck out of something with a hammer and make it go flying.
Yeah.
Like, and I just really wanted, like, there was the knockback feat, which came out of the Races of Stone, which was where Goliaths and powerful build originated in.
Sure.
And so there was the knockback feat, which was basically you bull rush, but as part of a weapon attack.
Okay.
So the idea is like you make a weapon attack and then you make a bull rush attempt with that weapon attack, and instead of moving with the target, the target just moves. They just go.
Yeah.
And like there's rules for like if they hit a wall and they take damage and stuff like that. And like I think I remember hitting, because I made sure to give my weapon as many things on as possible to make sure that like I was going to hit.
Yeah.
Because I was going to have one attack, so I wanted to make sure I hit. So I made sure that my weapon had like ghost touch. And I remember hitting a ghost into a wall and going, oh, right. It just flew through the wall, and now I just don't know where this ghost is anymore.
Yeah. Now you got to hit it into another ghost.
Right, exactly. I think at the time, we were playing with Meg was playing with us, and I think she was playing a shapeshifter.
Okay. Yeah.
She played.
I was gonna say, like you said, it was 4 people, but there were only ever three players. But no, Meg was with us. Yeah.
Yeah, she was a shapeshifter or some kind, it was like the war shaper. No, it was like a shape changer. I don't know.
Master of many forms.
That's probably it. Yeah. She turned into a bone ooze.
Okay, yeah.
And so my goal was to be knocking people into her as she was an ooze. But anyway, anything that gives like a knockback to an attack, I love that. Like I love the idea of just like being a big powerful melee fighter who can just like punch a guy and make it go flying. It's so much fun. And then like the added benefit of being able to lower your fall damage is like super like that's never not going to be useful.
Sure. Like I feel like depending on the campaign, sometimes it might not come up, very often, but when it comes up, it's going to be important.
Well, and I think like even in the campaigns where it's not going to come up as much, if you have that safety net, you're going to use it. Like I'm going to be jumping off of everything I can possibly climb on, like I'm going to give myself points in climbing or athletics or whatever so I can climb and jump because I can just bounce.
Sure.
So I love this item. This is right up my alley.
Yeah, it's a simple item. It's also kind of a silly item, but it definitely has a utility. It definitely has a use.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I like the idea that whenever it activates in any way, it goes boing.
Sure. There is a small tangent. The Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Yeah.
There was one from Goosebumps that was, I think it was like a day at Horrorland or something like that.
Okay.
And the main character is in like a carnival, like a creepy carnival. And at some point, I don't remember the circumstances that led to it, but at some point you can fall into a room where like you're falling and like you land on a giant trampoline. And then you go flying back up and then you fall back down and you hit the trampoline again. But the problem is every time you hit the trampoline, you end up going higher than you did last time.
Oh no.
And so that ending of the that death, I guess, is basically until you die of starvation, I guess. You are just bouncing up and down, getting higher and higher and higher every time until you die.
Till you leave atmosphere.
So a cursed version of this, maybe.
You just keep bouncing.
Sure. But yeah, it's a fun item. It does something that I think is definitely useful in the game, and
you have to make strength checks. You have to make strength checks to grab onto the ground, so that you don't bounce again.
Yeah.
You have to make a grapple check against the earth,
or an athletics check to like flap your arms to change direction.
Sure, yeah.
If you can make it that direction slowly but surely, eventually you'll grab onto something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good item. Thank you very much, Black Magus 2651. So that'll do it for the Dragon's Horde. Thank you, Black Magus 2651. Once again, that was the Bounce Back Bands by Brasiliensis. So, Jeff, if anybody else wanted to submit magic items for the Dragon's Horde, if they wanted to submit questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre, how would they get those to us?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com or join us on our Interparty Discord at bit.ly/interpartydiscord.
That's correct. And before we go any further, we have a giveaway to give away today.
Woo!
As usual, we're giving away a copy of 3 supplements from Crit Academy, the Warmind, the Skybreaker, and the Werecat. 3 player supplements, a cleric domain, a fighter archetype, and a subrace, all from Crit Academy, along with some other stuff that Justin has been sending out along with those. So some great stuff in this little bundle here. So Jeff, who is the winner of this bundle of supplements today?
Today's winner is TB.
Winner. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Yes, congratulations, TB. You should be getting those in your email pretty soon. Give it a few days. If you haven't gotten it within a week, let us know. And when you do get them, be sure to leave Crit Academy a review. You can leave a review for each of these products, and the more reviews you leave, the more attention they can get, and the more feedback they can get to improve future products. So please, please, please leave them some reviews. I'm sure they will appreciate it. So big thank you to Crit Academy for facilitating this giveaway. Good job, TB. Jeff, if anybody else wants to enter this drawing and have a chance at winning these great supplements from Crit Academy, how would they enter the drawing?
They can enter by sending us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com with Crit3 in the subject line.
That's correct. Do you love Interparty Conflict? You know, the show you're listening to right now? Yeah! Then check out their Patreon at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. You can help support the show and get tons of bonus content too. Access hundreds of outtakes, dozens of short stories, periodic updates about the behind the scenes of the show, personalized media, a monthly Roll20 game run by Gabe himself, and more. Every month, Green and Red Tier patrons get access to the bonus podcast InterPatronConflict, where Gabe and Jeff cover a wide variety of topics. Join right now and access the most recent episode, which might sound a little something like this. I don't even know how it started. Just at some point I started saying the phrase tether bunnies as it envisioning that we had tied the rope around our rabbit Mops. And so she was just flying around, swinging around on this rope.
Horrific.
It does sound horrific. I don't know how this started in the first place.
Yeah, but anyways, back to tether bunnies. So at one point the ball just completely became untied from the rope.
We had been throwing it at each other's faces for a little while.
Got tired of it
because we were like, surely it's not going to hit anybody. And then I don't remember what we were doing. Somebody just tossed it to the side or whatever, and then it tore off.
Well, yes.
So we were extremely lucky that it tore off after we were done rocketing it at each other's faces.
And that was the trip where I disappeared with the ghost dogs.
Yes. Once again, go to patreon.com/interpartyconflict to help out the show and access all that bonus content today. And then just one more quick thing, check out the other podcasts on the Crit Nation Fellowship. Check out Crit Academy, as I mentioned, they're at critacademy.com. Justin, Ian, and Austin create new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. Also check out Brute Force and Ignorance. They're an actual play podcast that I believe has just come back from hiatus. Check out D&D Character Lab, where Garen and Dan made characters every week and pitted them against each other. And also check out The Kind GM, which is another advice-based podcast for Dungeon Masters. So some great stuff on this network. Go check all of those out. Enough of all the admin. Let's get into some questions, Jeff.
All right. Our first question comes from Northern Vashista on Reddit, and they ask, how would you feel if somebody played the same character in multiple campaigns?
Yeah. So let's imagine you're going to be running a campaign, or let's say you're even just a player. Either one. I'll take both points of view on this. And then somebody shows up, and they say, I have this character that I played in another campaign. I want to play that character in this campaign. Mm-hmm. What's your gut reaction? And then if you like it, dislike it, what are some reasons, I guess?
Sure. My gut reaction is sure.
Yeah.
There's no shame in playing the same character over and over again. Like if you feel that there's more that character has to give as far as playing the game, there's absolutely no reason for doing that. No reason. Yeah. There's nothing inherently bad with that.
Yeah.
However, if this person is just trying to bring in
a bunch of magic items or something,
right? Bring in content from outside of the campaign into the campaign.
Sure.
That's where I would draw the line. I'd be like, well, yes, this character has this magical sword in that campaign, but this is a different campaign. It would be up for discussion whether or not this is a continuation, whether it be a prequel or sequel of this character's adventures.
Sure.
That'd be up for discussion, but not necessarily like a for sure thing for me as a DM.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, I'm up for talking about that, but I'm not gonna say, yeah, let's for sure take all the things that your character knows from this other campaign and put it into this one.
Sure.
But yeah, because like, or it could be, this character has this class that, I worked through with this other DM about, and they were cool with having all this stuff, but now I want this in this campaign. That'd be another thing that's like, oh, okay, let's discuss that a bit.
Yeah.
But as far as like, character, like the personality and like the flavor, the concept of the character, like the flavor, at least the flavor wise, the classes and everything. Like if it's basically the same character, if you're just doing the same voice again,
yeah,
doesn't bother me at all. I think that's great. Like if that's the fun part for you, keep doing it because it's fun for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a couple lines that need to be drawn and a few things that need to be discussed before it's like a for sure thing though.
Definitely. As a concept, I have no problem with this. I'm no stranger to this, as I'll get to in a minute. But if a player let's say a player wants to play a certain archetype, they want to play, I don't know, a half-orc barbarian or something, and they've played a half-orc barbarian before, and so they just think it would be fun to play, the same half-orc barbarian, same name, same personality, same whatever. I don't necessarily think you should... there's any reason that you should shut that down as a whole.
Right.
I think like you were saying, Jeff, if they have ulterior motives, if it's that, well, I got this really good magic item, or my character, I learned a lot about, a lot of metagame stuff while playing that character, so I'm going to bring all that metagame knowledge with me or whatever. Those are things that, merits further discussion at the very least. Those are reasons to say no. But like if someone wants to play, here's a question. If they play Irek the Orc Barbarian, is that any different than if they make a new character that is Irek the Orc Barbarian that has the same personality and basically is the same character? Mm-hmm. What's the difference? Because when I first started playing D&D, the group I was in, they switched up DMs. I don't think the very first group, I didn't ever DM because I wasn't a DM yet. But the players, all the other players were experienced DMs in their own right. So each of them had PCs that they would play when the others were DMing.
Yeah.
And one of the other players had a half-orc barbarian. His name was Irek. That's why I use that as an example. And that campaign went for a few months. I think eventually fell apart. But then I was playing another campaign with that same player. He played a half-orc barbarian, and I don't think it was Iraq, but whatever it was some variation of the name that he had already used, but otherwise it was the exact same character. And if you tell a player, no, you can't play, for whatever reason, no, you can't play that character from another campaign, but they still want to, they can just make that same character and just call them something different, or just make it less explicit. So you're not really stopping anything if you just have some axe to grind in regards to this particular phenomenon. Now, like I said, I've done this myself. So in that very first campaign I played as a human monk. His name was Harrop. Once I started DMing, I was running a game for our friends Jay and Steve, and I introduced Harrop as an NPC. That's being generous. Really, it was a DMPC. This was before I realized. This was while I was learning the dangers of DMPCs. So don't judge me too much. But I introduced the character of Harrop, even though this was ostensibly a different world. There was then a point later in that campaign where my girlfriend at the time, who is not my wife, so the person I dated before my wife, she had played D&D with us in the previous campaign. And she wanted to start playing with us in that campaign. So I was like, oh yeah, just bring along the character you had been playing. And then there was a fun little moment where her character met my character, and the two of them knew each other despite both of them being from, again, a different world. It was just a funny little moment in game. Now, of course, DMPCs are a bad thing. I shouldn't have done that. But that concept, there's nothing wrong with that concept. As for the player that I let bring a character from the previous campaign to the new campaign, there was nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If nothing else, it gave her an easier in as far as role-playing goes, as far as, knowing what her character can and can't do. It was a better start than if she had to make a whole new character, just from scratch.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't do that. Now, I did a little bit of, I had my character Ichi that I played later on. I had him show up again as an NPC, not as a DMPC. I've learned by this point. I had Ichi show up as an NPC in other campaigns, but in that case, the justification is that he was a planar traveler. So if someone was going to show up in different campaign worlds, it's going to be a planar traveler,
Mm-hmm.
But when we moved to Tennessee, I joined one group that I had a lot of fun playing. As I had this character that was a Deva, because it was 4th edition at the time. In 4th edition, one of the defining features of a Deva is that whenever they die, they are reincarnated as a slightly different version of themselves with some memories of their past selves. And so they had like a racial ability they could use that it gave them advantage on a particular check because you're remembering one of your past lives and so on.
Sure.
And so I played this character and I had a lot of fun playing this character, but I only played as him for a few sessions. And then that campaign fell apart. But then I was going to be in another group and I was like, gosh, I really enjoyed playing as that character. Is there a way I could play that character in this new campaign? And so I ran the idea by the DM and I explained the whole, the character's whole shtick. And then I backed it up by saying, he's a Deva. Devas reincarnate. There's no reason they couldn't reincarnate in a different world. And then have some of their memories of their past lives. And so the DM was totally cool with it. He ran with some of the character ideas that I had, and it was a lot of fun. That similarly didn't last very long, but that gave me the idea, if I ever want to play this character, I have the perfect justification for doing so in a future campaign.
Sure, yeah.
I don't recall if I have. I think it was just the 2 times that I played as this character.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, actually I played that character in that thing Justin did. Anyway, I guess this is just to show that, I think that with necessary justification, if it is necessary, this can be a very fun concept, and it can give the dungeon master opportunities to build on that. How did this character get from that campaign world to this campaign world? Are they the same campaign world and we just don't realize it?
Right.
When we did our Dawn of Worlds game for Patreon last year, Dawn of Worlds, for anyone not familiar, it's a world building game. So I had all of our red tier patrons. We got together on it wasn't Roll20, it was some other, it was Miro. But I had our top tier patrons. We got together, we played this game where we all built a world together. And I was purposely, I only had a little bit of control at the very beginning. I just kind of decided it was going to be this continent, but I decided that I wanted it to be just one continent of a bigger world because I liked the idea of in the future, maybe we could do this again and make one of the other continents on this world that just didn't get involved the first time around.
Yeah.
And I would love the idea if we were to do that in the future of having some of the characters or whatever from the campaign we're playing in now show up in that campaign. So I specifically set it up that at some point during the game of Dawn of Worlds, on one of my turns, I had a ship leave the continent with some of the player races, with some of the NPCs or whatever, and go off into the off into the horizon with the intention that then if we did do something in the future, there would be a reason why some of these player races we came up with, some of them would show up in this whatever other continent that we create.
Yeah.
So I'm all for this. If I didn't make that clear, I love this idea. Definitely there needs to be some work done. Talk to the DM. But if a player wants to do it and the DM doesn't have some arbitrary reason to shut it down, go for it. The player has done most of the work for you. and given you opportunities to, to work in a multiverse or a bigger world or whatever. I don't know what's outside of the Forgotten Realms, what's outside of the big map of the Forgotten Realms. I'm sure some people do. Don't at me, I guess. But if a player came to me and said, oh yeah, I want my character to actually be from Greyhawk, which is just, a few thousand miles that direction from Faerun. Okay. Again, I don't know much about Faerun. I could work with that. At the very least, I can think about it. I can try and see how I can, involve that and so on.
Right.
It's a great idea. Go for it.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of a tangent. Maybe I'll cut this out. Maybe I won't. But Jeff, have you ever heard of something called the Tommy Westfall universe?
Tommy Westfall universe? No, I don't think so.
So TV shows actually do this exact thing often.
Right.
Very often there will be a TV show that, whether it's a recurring character or just a cameo or whatever, a character from another show will show up on a new show. There's, I think, there's a character from the Law and Order universe or whatever that has been on 30 different TV shows, most of the time as a cameo, but this same character has been on all these different shows, played by the same actor, called by the same name, and so on. It's like Detective Munch or something is his name.
Anyway. I know what you're talking about, yeah.
So that's the thing that happens on TV a lot. Now, there was a website that I came across many, many years ago. It does still exist. I checked recently because I talked about this on our Nowhere Man podcast. But there is a TV show that has gone, and they have said, okay, this show has a cameo from this character from this other show, which means that those two shows share a universe, and they draw a line between those two shows. But that second show also has a cameo from this other show, which then has a cameo from this other show. And then on that show, they have a brand of cigarettes that was created for this other show, and so on. And so they've created this gigantic web of, I'm talking hundreds of TV shows that theoretically are all in the same universe, because you can draw a line from cameo on Arrested Development through Law and Order, that then there was a brand of whatever that was on Lost, and then Lost had a cameo from this other thing, and then it goes on, and eventually you're on Doctor Who, and then it's connected to Star Trek, and then all sorts of things. And before you know it, every single TV show ever has been in the same universe at some point.
I am looking at a map right now.
Yes. Isn't it fantastic?
Ridiculous. I don't know if this is the one you're referring to. I imagine it is basically that, or, I don't know how the accuracy of this particular one I'm looking at, but it's like Good Times is connected with Maude, which is connected to All in the Family, which is connected to the Jeffersons, which is connected to Mission Impossible.
I believe it.
Which is the Andy Griffith Show, connected to the Danny Thomas Show, which is connected to the Dick Van Dyke Show, which is connected to Mad About You, which is connected to Friends, which I know that.
Okay.
I know that.
That's connected to all sorts of stuff, yeah.
Carolina, which is connected to Carolina in the City, which is connected to Frasier, which is connected to Cheers, which is connected to Boston Legal, which is connected to Boston Public, which is connected to Saint Elsewhere.
Well, so Saint Elsewhere is why it is called the Tommy Westfall universe.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's this big cross in the this big blue cross in the map that is Saint Elsewhere and Homicide: Life on the Street. Is that the same thing?
No, it's a different show, but I'm sure they had a lot of cameos between the two. Are you at all familiar with Saint Elsewhere?
No.
I haven't seen it myself, but I believe it was one of the first hospital procedural shows that had an ensemble cast or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a hospital drama that had a big cast of characters that were on, most, if not all, episodes, and so on and so on. It's a very influential show. But it had a lot of cameos, and that's where a lot of this starts. But spoilers for the finale of Saint Elsewhere. This was a show from 40 years ago or whatever. In the finale of this show, after I think it was 5 seasons or something like that, the hospital, which this all takes place in, St. Elsewhere Hospital, I think the hospital was running out of money or something and was going to go out of business. And anyway, it is revealed in the final scene of the final episode that this entire show has actually been a dream. One of the characters on the show was like this autistic boy, and he wakes up in the final scene of the final episode. He's like sick. He's been having fever dreams. And then his dad walks in, who in the show I think was like one of the doctors. His dad walks in the final scene. He's like a construction worker or something. Some of the other characters walk in and they've got other professions or whatever. And you see the kid, he's been like having these fever dreams while looking into this snow globe of a hospital.
Oh,
and so he's been imagining the entire show.
Yeah. I've heard this referenced.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been referenced or lampooned or whatever in lots of things. But I think this is why the whole Tommy Westfall is the name of the kid.
Okay, so the whole map is basically inside the mind of this kid.
Yes, it all started because someone watched the show and they were like, well, wait a minute. If this show is a dream, that means that this other show is a dream, and then that other show is a dream, and so on and so on. And it went on, and it is what it is today. So it's just a fascinating thing. But the point is, TV shows do this all the time. Sometimes it's a big thing. Sometimes it is literally the point of the show.
Yeah.
Family Matters, which was the show with Steve Urkel. Family Matters started as a spin-off of the show Perfect Strangers. Harriet Winslow was a character on Perfect Strangers, and her husband Carl, the police officer, those were recurring characters on Perfect Strangers. They then split off and made a show about that family, which eventually kind of became the Steve Urkel show after that character was introduced several episodes in. And so sometimes it's a spin-off, and then in that case, let's say it's a campaign. If the whole campaign is a spin-off about one character, that's one thing. Sometimes it's a cameo. There might just be, a character shows up for literally one joke and then they're gone. Sometimes it's just you'll hear a PA system calling out for Dr. Gupta. And then it's like, oh, that's the character from that other show that was on at the same time, or that show that was made by the same director or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you are putting something like that, if you're letting something like this happen in your game, it is important to establish, is it a spin-off or is it a cameo? If a player shows up and then they suddenly want to make the campaign about their character and about this other story that you weren't a part of, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I could see that happening in the cases where I did this. When I did this as a player, I tried to make that not the thing. I tried to run with whatever the DM had planned. I just tried to just give, this is my backstory. Do with it what you want. If you want to change it, go for it. So I tried not to make it about me. I could definitely see a player doing this and making it about them, making it about the previous campaign that they were in, which again, you might not have been a part of. Mm-hmm. So in that case, I could definitely see that as a reason to tell the player, whoa, hold your horses. Calm down. I'm sure Mr. Ed was part of the Tommy Westfall universe somehow or another. You can definitely use that as a reason to push back against it. Maybe try to scale that down. Maybe just, if you don't want to deal with it, feel free to just tell them no. But that's your reason. It's not just because you don't like it. It's because you don't want to make the entire campaign about this other campaign. You would never want the players that are present to feel like they're just playing in a sequel to something they were not present for. So if you can avoid that, if you can avoid making it about that player or that character, then you'll be fine. If that's what you don't like, feel free to say no. Feel free to, tweak it or whatever. But if a player shows up and they say, "Hey, I would like to play this character," think about it. I'm just urging you, think about it, see how you could use that, and go from there. And players, if you do this, be open to change. Maybe this is an alternate universe version of your character. They don't have to be the exact same character, but to you, you can play them the same.
According to this list, Mr. Ed is part of the Tommy Westfall universe. I couldn't find it on the map, but I found a master list, and it is in there. I was like, it has to be.
Sure.
Mr. Ed had to have had a cameo at one point or another in another show, and there's no way.
So I think that's a good idea. So do it.
Yeah.
Do it, or at least consider it. I'm not telling people to run your game however you want to run your game, but don't pass up on a cool opportunity.
Yeah. Our next question comes from Soul of a Liar on Reddit, and they ask, would it be a bad idea to lie to my players about the type of campaign I plan on running in favor of a big twist?
Yeah, and I do have the specific type of campaign that they were planning on running, so I can use that as an example.
Sure.
The example that Soul of a Liar was giving was they wanted to have a campaign where starts off, typical sword and sorcery, whatever campaign you would expect from Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, a little ways into the campaign, the players get caught in a time warp or something, and they get kicked out centuries in the future. And now the big bad has taken over the world and technology has advanced. So it's not necessarily all sword and sorcery. It's, going to be maybe sci-fi, maybe there's guns, maybe who knows what. But the idea being that they would want the players to make their characters under the assumption that there is going to be sword and sorcery, magic, fantasy, medieval, whatever, and then have the twist shortly into the campaign be that, oh no, actually, it's kind of futuristic, dystopian, whatever.
Yeah. I think a twist that big, like a shift that large, you would really have to know your players. Would have this would have to be a group that you've been with for a long time and you know what their likes and dislikes are. Yeah. Because if you spring this on somebody that you don't know everything about them, they might go well, this is not, I have no interest in this whatsoever. I'm out. Yeah. They might just they really like fantasy. They really like, they really like D&D, Lord of the Rings, all that. Hate sci-fi. They just hate sci-fi. They think it's just stupid and boring and whatever. They just don't like it. I don't, I know there are people out there who just don't like sci-fi.
I personally find sci-fi a lot harder to get into than fantasy.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't see anything wrong with that. It's some people just don't prefer one genre over another, and that's just how they are. So if they go in expecting one and then they get the other, they might be well, this is not fun for me anymore. Goodbye, mm-hmm. Or they might, or even worse, they might know that that's no longer fun for them, but not speak up and just and just be miserable for the whole time. This isn't something that you could never do, but it's something that you should maybe make sure you know what you're doing and who you're doing it to before you do it. Or maybe you don't have to tell them exactly what the twist is, but you can say there's gonna be a big shift here. There might be a big shift, so maybe don't get too attached to the ideas that you have so far or something like that. Because I can understand being if you say, hey, this is going to be fantasy, but then it's going to turn into sci-fi and this and that, that person might try to use that information to build their character around that idea, which, might not be the worst thing, but it might not be what you want.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think it really is a matter of how well do you know your players and how they would react to something like that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. If you know your players well enough, you could try something like this. I would just say, as a blanket statement, maybe don't do it. I guess,
right?
In certain situations, it could work, but it might. If you're not sure, it's probably not a good idea. If you do know your players and you know that they will be on board for whatever the twist is, that's cool. I still would tell the players, hey, just be aware there is going to be a big twist, a big upset that will change how you interact with the world. Because here's the thing. Let's say someone makes a wizard, and then because of however you've set up this futuristic, sci-fi, dystopian, whatever, they might find out, oh, my character is not fun to play in this environment. That happens. That happens even when players know what the campaign is going to be. That can happen. Yeah. And that is the worst. And you never want to tell a player, sorry, you have to keep playing this character you don't like. So then you end up with players remaking their characters after the twist, and then it's like, well, what's the point? Why not just have them do that anyway?
Yeah. Because it could be they're playing a character and the character becomes less effective or less fun.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, now I no longer want to play this character. I want to play a different character. Or I think, I don't know, what feels worse to me is like they really liked their character and were excited to play this character in this environment.
That is worse.
And then you change the environment and go like, well, all right, cool. They wasted the time on this character. Like I wasted this character. And this does go back to one before where it's like, this is one of the reasons why somebody would want to reuse a character in a different campaign is because the campaign before went off the rails.
Sure.
And they were excited to play this character until it went off the rails and went crap. Well, I guess I'm not playing this. Like, I guess I'm not going to get to play this character to its full potential because, DM wanted to turn it into Star Wars.
Sure.
But so like they might go like, all right, on the next time somebody runs a campaign, I'll be like, is this going to stay fantasy? Yes. All right, then I'm going to play this character I've already made.
Sure. Like, here's the thing. I'm a writer, and I am also a consumer of fiction. I love me a good twist.
Yeah.
So I can definitely understand wanting to have a twist and wanting to have the players get to the twist without any knowledge of the twist. That being said, twists are hard to do well.
Mm-hmm.
And so often, I have tried so hard to keep a twist secret to the point where nobody even cares because I have not given them enough information to enjoy the story up until they're not even engaged because I have worked so hard to keep the twist secret.
Right.
I have been guilty of that so many times. One of my biggest failings as a DM is not giving the players enough information because I have a twist planned.
Right. Yep.
I have been guilty of that so many times.
That's an easy thing to do. Like that's an easy error to make. Like I've definitely done that too. Like I've heard you talk about doing that and I've gone in knowing I shouldn't do that and I still do it. Like it's easy to do.
Not to plug my other podcast too much, but that's what Steve and I spent like 100 hours complaining about in this TV show Nowhere Man, because
they don't give you enough information.
It's to the point where it is clear the writers don't even know what the twist is going to be.
Yeah.
So of course they can't give you any breadcrumbs to follow because they don't know where the breadcrumbs are supposed to lead.
Right. Yeah.
It's frustrating.
That is a problem with some like television shows, especially because like, it's different writers. Like it's not always the same writer for the whole show. And, it's not always finished, depending on who wrote the show and what network picked it up and things like that. Like they don't have a whole story finished. Like, they try to make shows to run forever so that they can keep making money. They don't want to make a contained story. They want to make a franchise.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So like if you really want this twist, you do have to decide, can I make this twist work even if the players know something that there's going to be a twist coming up?
Yeah.
Obviously, I like twists, but obviously I don't want to know all of the beats of the story before we get there. So it is a balancing act. You do have to balance, how do I give them enough information to still have some surprises, but not keep so much information from them that they don't care, So on one hand, you could just start and tell the players, at some point this is going to switch to be sci-fi. It is probably still possible to have the twist be a big deal. Yeah. I'm sure, especially in a role-playing game, the players will still probably enjoy it. It probably won't be the same, but I think that the assurance that the players are still going to be on board is much better than the surprise that comes along with not knowing if the players are still going to enjoy what happens when you completely change genres on them.
Mm.
So I don't know if I made any sense saying that just now. So I guess what I'm saying is err in favor of giving your players more information. If you can tell the players, okay, there is going to be a big twist, the genre of the game is going to change. Maybe you should tell them it's going to change to sci-fi. Maybe don't. Maybe drop some hints that it's going to be sci-fi. But you got to give them something. Springing something like that on the players, especially if you are like, you know from the beginning that you're withholding information from them that could change how they make their characters, like that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So be open with your players. Try not to do this. If you know that the players like sci-fi and you've been playing with them for a long time, you can err on giving them less information, but still give them something. Tell them the campaign is going to shift significantly after a few adventures. Tell them something like that so that when it happens, they're not like, what is this? What did you just do? Is this what the campaign's going to be? If they're like, oh, this is what the DM was talking about. Okay, that's a different reaction than, okay, can we go back to playing what we were playing a minute ago?
Like how do we get back home? And then
exactly.
they go like, oh no, this is where you are now. Like, oh, great.
Now, I would definitely, whether you are telling them there's a twist or not, I guess especially if you're not telling them there's a twist, when the twist happens, have a session, a session, not as session 0 because it's already after session 0, but have like a mid campaign side session where the players can remake their characters if they want to.
Yeah. And in like, if it is like a shift to sci-fi, you could be like, oh, they were, it's just do some like, just some sci-fi mumbo jumbo to like have them turn into something else. Oh, they mutated or whatever.
They're hit with some nanovirus that changes them into whatever.
Right. They get injected with the, like nanites and
they get some tech upgrade, some like,
they're all cyborgs
bio
now.
Upgrades. Yeah. They're cyborgs now. Exactly.
Everyone's a cyborg. You get a cyborg and you get a cyborg.
Right.
So I think I mentioned earlier that like one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to tell people these things is so that they don't build their character around it too much. Like they don't metagame power build towards like, oh, I know, like, oh, I get what's going to happen. So I'm going to prepare for it. I'm going to over prepare for it.
Sure.
And make it, and basically defeat it faster than is fun for everybody else. Then I thought like having an ineffective character sucks. It's so bad. It is so unfun. It is one of the worst things that can happen in D&D is having an ineffective character.
Agreed.
And if you think about like writing in shows and things like that, like even in shows where a character gets whisked away to a completely different world, like Farscape, like Crichton is his name, right?
Yeah, John Crichton,
like he's at very least like he was like an astrophysicist or something, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like he had something to do, like he had something to do, like he wasn't completely lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like he definitely was lost, but he was not, he had somewhere to start from.
Sure.
In any of these kind of shows and movies where they get, another dimension, fantasy world, Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, that like everybody's got like some sort of talent or ambition or something that helps them through this new place, or like that helps them fit in somehow.
Yeah. So
like it makes sense as far as a storytelling, which this is a game of collective storytelling, that you would want to prepare ahead of time something that your character can do in whatever the goal of the campaign is, like whatever the setting, the final setting of the campaign is in.
Sure.
This campaign is going to be all about planes hopping or something. So it's like, all right, at first I'm only going to be a fighter. That's fine. But there's this cool like prestige class or whatever edition you're playing in that eventually leads into, some cool stuff that has to do with planeswalking, like maybe something that the player can work towards, but not necessarily, start with.
Sure. A long time ago, I ran, it didn't last for very long, as campaigns are wont to do.
Yep.
I did run a little bit of a plane hopping campaign. I'm trying to remember if I was explicit about that with the players right from the get-go. I want to say I was. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know. If similar thing. If the campaign is going to be about plane hopping, you should probably let the players know, because they might make a different character in that case.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So just be open with your players. I know that the twist is a lucrative mistress. You really want to yearn for that twist, and you want the players to experience that twist, and you want it to just be amazing, but that is so risky, and it is so hard to do well, that you might end up just making a crappy story that nobody cares about.
Yeah.
Even if the twist was good, if they don't care, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. I think there are twists. There are twists that are better suited for D&D than others. Like a big setting twist, is rough, but like a twist in the development of a character, like a twist, like there's a twist to like the big bad evil guy. Oh, he's actually this instead. It's like if the twist was the big bad evil guy was from the future and from sci-fi, but it like the bad guy is the one that is out of place. Like that's a cool twist.
That is a cool twist.
Like that's not gonna but because you're still in but because the players are still playing in the world that they expected to be in, their characters aren't going to feel out of place. They're just going to feel challenged because this character has different knowledge than anybody else does.
Okay.
So like they might come across a trap or something that was developed by this evil guy who has knowledge of, futuristic technology or something. So like they're going to be stumped by it, but that like they're not going to feel like cheated, I think.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
So like, like twists that aren't, like a twist that isn't going to necessarily affect everything around the player.
Yeah.
But, they might interact with something that has a twist to it. I don't know.
So yeah, to answer the question, there's a way to make it work. It's possible to make it work, but don't take that gamble. That's probably going to bite you in the butt if you do.
And if you do, like with the mid-session, with the mid-session 0. Yeah. Mid-session 0.
Mid-campaign sessions. A session like, I don't know, Infinity 0.5 or something, because you can't have 0.
Well, no, I was thinking mid-session 0 sounds like I don't know, it sounds like a crappy video game. So like, a midpoint session where you go like, hey, do you like guys like this? And they go, nah, we want to go back. And then you go, all right, fine. And then just go back. Like have that future setting be for one adventure. Yeah. And then they go, and then they find a thing to help them go back, and then like think of something else, I guess.
Yeah, or that's not a bad idea.
Take the ideas you had for the future one and just put them back into the normal setting and tweak a few things.
Hey, some of the future stuff came back.
Right. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. Like, that I think that's a good compromise. Yeah. That's not too bad. Like you could bring, like you guys find a way back. Hooray. But now some of the future came back and you kind of have to deal with it a little bit, but like don't have it so much to where like everyone's got laser swords now, like you have it with like, oh, one guy found a laser sword.
Sure.
Okay, we gotta go deal with that one guy who found the one laser sword that happened to make its way through, and hey, maybe you give the laser sword to one of the players, and so now they have a cool laser sword that's, just a Vorpal sword.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, good luck. Whatever you do end up doing, Soul of a Liar.
Yes, good luck. Wait, Soul of a Liar, they've been lying this whole time. They're not even... That was the twist. This was all a lie.
You figured it out. Well, so that'll do it for our regular questions for today. But we do still have our social media questions. Our last social media question was, have you ever had a character lose a limb or suffer some kind of permanent injury? If so, how did it happen? Did you have an answer, Jeff? Do you recall?
The only thing I can think of, I had like a really big scar on one of my characters, but it wasn't like it flavor-wise tied into some stuff, but it didn't really change much. It was just a scar that the character got from fighting his father on a rooftop or something.
Sure. Similarly for me, just some, not necessarily like a loss of limb or anything, but like a scar or mental scarring or something. But nothing that required different mechanics.
Yeah.
So we're recording this a couple days earlier than we usually do, and so we don't have very many responses. I don't know if it's because those people just have not everybody's just gotten to us, or if it's just because not many people have responses to this question. I don't know.
I mean, last few questions have been more like very more specific, I guess. Like,
yeah, kind of
asking about specific situations. So it's it's possible, just not as many people have this exact experience. So
sure. So over on Facebook, we just have one. Sean M says, no, but I'd like to, and then has a GIF of the Black Knight from Monty Python with his arms and legs cut off, trying to bite at them as they walk away.
Have at you.
But then actually Sean said, actually I have. My halfling fighter lost a finger thanks to an anti-hero ranger NPC who was stalking the party. That finger was his left-hand middle finger, which he keeps in a small jar on a leather string around his neck. Amaranth and his team need the help of the ranger for the time being, and when all is done, he plans to throw the jar at the ranger for a one-on-one showdown.
I like it was the middle finger, and he wears it around his neck, so he's always flipping people off.
On Reddit, we don't have any. On Twitter, we don't have any. And on Discord, we just have a couple. Stiltskin Kupo 84 says, I have a mini dungeon tucked away on the shelf that would require a voluntary loss of an arm, a leg, and possibly a fist. The finger loss would only happen in case of a bad roll. It's the only scenario like that I have. And if you're thinking it's Saw inspired, you'd be wrong. Closer to Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, some sort of like a situation where the only way out is to give up an arm, a leg, and or a fist.
Yeah.
MRV73 says, death is permanent, isn't it? With a little wink. And I actually replied, less so than you might think in a game like D&D.
Right.
And Debrasor says, my character Kara was missing a ring finger, the one which once held a loyalty ring for betraying the mob.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's neat when it's like it's a repercussion for something story related, So yeah, that's all we got. Not a ton, but that's fine. I doubt this is a very common thing. I mean, like I said, it's never happened to either of us, so I'm not really surprised.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things that could that's sounds like a cool idea, but then it becomes kind of like, I don't know.
Yep.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
Sure. So that was our last social media question. Our next social media question is probably something a bit more general. How does your gaming group handle party loot? Do you divide it up immediately, or does someone keep track?
Yeah, I think usually the way it goes is one person keeps track, and then at the end of the session or something, we might divvy it up, or at the beginning of the next session we might divvy it up. Mm-hmm. But then if there are specific items that are that I want that, it's sort of if something stands out to somebody, they might be like, does anybody mind if I just take that now?
Sure.
But then beyond that, I think it's just sort of okay, let's we'll just keep it tracked down, and then the next time we get to town or before the next session or whatever, we'll just convert it to gold pieces and
pretty much,
and divvy it up between the party. Yeah,
we're pretty loosey-goosey about that sort of thing, so I'm always open to if somebody has a better way to do it,
Right. Yeah. Like a sidekick mimic that carries it all.
Yep. All right. Well, that'll do it for our questions for today. But before we close out, let's wind down. Let's relax. Let's take a deep breath. let's remember those who have come before us, who have given their lives that we may have a better world to live in, as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. Today's funeral pyre was submitted by Dustino3377 on Reddit.
Wait, is this just Dustin in a disguise?
I don't think he's on Reddit, and
okay.
There is actually, the character in this does sound like a character Dustin would play. As the cleric and rest of the party focused on the stupid rat swarm, my barbarian alchemist gnome battled the overpowered Drider to his death. Mm-hmm. I saw the cleric give the GM a quick knowing smirk when I said my PC was down. I knew this was probably the last time I'd play at a convention and for RPGA. So, yeah. I feel like there's more to the story there, but unfortunately, Dustino3377 did not provide any of the subtext going on. But, yeah. That sucks, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's raise a glass in memory of this barbarian alchemist gnome. As we say, your PC isn't down, your PC is up.
What?
I don't know. I don't know what that means. All right. I think that'll do it for today. So to submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com, although unfortunately that still hasn't been updated since like 5 episodes ago because I'm still having technical issues. You can join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict. We're on Reddit. We're on our Interparty Discord. We're also on Twitter @InPartyConflict. Check those out for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you want to support the show monetarily, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, will go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is a YouTube channel where you can watch us play video games.
Yes. Maybe now that we're both vaccinated, maybe we can do some gaming in person sometime.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show. What you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games, courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, until next time.
The podcast was dead the whole time.